We're all pretty used to AI just, well, responding, right? Like you ask it something and it spits out an answer.
Yeah, exactly.
But get ready because things are about to change. Big time.
Oh, yeah.
Today, we are going deep on something called agentic AI.
Okay.
Think of it as AI that can, actually take initiative. It doesn't just react.
Right. Not just sitting there waiting for a prompt.
Exactly. And for this deep dive, we've got some seriously insightful research. I mean, we're talking big changes that agentic AI is bringing to, well, everything, really.
Yeah, pretty much everything.
Like how we think about creativity and who owns what.
Yeah, all that.
And then all the legal stuff.
Absolutely.
And even how businesses compete. The whole landscape could change.
Right.
So first things first.
Yeah.
What exactly are we talking about when we say agentic AI?
So agentic AI, these are AI systems that can, set their own goals and then figure out how to reach them. And not just simple things. We're talking complex actions.
Yeah.
And all of this without us needing to, constantly step in and give instructions.
So it's not just doing what it's told.
No, not at all. It's more like...
It's thinking for itself, making its own decisions.
That is a huge shift from the generative AI that we see everywhere now.
It is. It's a whole other level, a fundamental shift.
Okay, so I'm already thinking about those intelligent agents and autonomous agents that we've heard about before, in multi-agent systems. Is this the same thing?
It's similar, yeah. But agentic AI, it goes way beyond.
Okay.
Like it's not just responding to a set of instructions, or operating within a very controlled space.
Right.
Agentic AI, this can handle open-ended tasks, things it wasn't specifically programmed to do.
So it can learn and adapt.
Exactly. And
Okay.
even more than that, it's getting really good at reasoning and communicating, almost like a human.
Whoa, so it can handle tricky situations.
Yeah, and explain what it's doing.
Wow. Okay. So to help me really grasp this,
Yeah.
think about OpenAI's deep research.
This isn't just like a super search engine, right?
It's way more than that.
So tell me, what sets deep research apart?
So deep research, this thing can actually do independent, really deep internet research.
Wow.
And we're not just talking about looking things up. It can plan out an entire investigation.
Seriously?
Yeah, at different stages and everything. Then it analyzes all sorts of sources, text, images, videos, you name it, and then it puts it all together into a report with citations and everything.
A whole research paper written by an AI.
Pretty much.
I mean, that's what human researchers do, spend hours and hours poring over documents and stuff.
Exactly. Deep research is doing that, but autonomously.
And it's making its own calls along the way.
Yeah.
Like deciding which sources are legit, how much weight to give different facts.
All of that.
It's even figuring out how to structure the report.
Exactly.
So we're not talking about just finding stuff.
This is independent decision-making.
Wow.
That's the big thing here, that autonomy.
So compare that to what we usually see with, the standard generative AI.
Okay, so...
Generative AI is mainly reacting to what we ask it to do.
Right.
You give it a prompt, it gives you an output.
Yeah. Researchers like Huang, Rust, and Maximovich, and more recently, Mukherjee and Chang.
Right.
They've all talked about this, how generative AI is mostly reactive.
But agentic AI,
This is proactive.
like Russell and Norvig said, it takes initiative.
Exactly.
It adapts.
Yeah.
Okay, paint me a picture here. Give me a real-world example.
Okay, imagine you're planning a trip
Okay.
to Vietnam, let's say.
All right, Vietnam it is.
So you've got your regular chatbot.
Yeah.
And then you've got your agentic AI travel assistant.
Okay, big difference.
Huge difference.
All right, so the chatbot, what's that going to do for me?
So the chatbot, that's going to answer your questions, right?
Yeah.
Like what's popular in Vietnam, or when are the flights to Ho Chi Minh City? Basic stuff.
Okay, what about the agentic AI?
Now, this is where things get interesting.
Okay.
The agentic AI travel assistant. This is going to take charge.
Oh.
He's going to create a whole personalized itinerary for your entire trip.
Like what kind of stuff? What are we talking about here?
So we're talking booking flights,
Okay.
making sure they fit your budget and, what you like.
Right.
Booking your hotels,
Okay.
choosing the best ones based on, where you've stayed before or what the reviews say,
Interesting.
and then scheduling tours,
Really?
maybe even a trip to the My Sun Sanctuary.
Cool.
Even making dinner reservations at those, really authentic local spots.
Wow. Is that all?
Nope, there's more.
Seriously?
Yeah, so this AI, it can also track the weather.
Okay.
and then suggest the best days to do stuff outside.
That's pretty handy.
Right. It can even haggle with local tour operators to get you a better price.
No way.
And then, get this.
What?
If your flight gets delayed,
Oh.
or there's some cool festival happening, it can change your itinerary.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's adjusting to what's happening in real time.
So it's not just giving me information.
No.
It's making things happen.
Exactly.
That is amazing.
Right. It's a whole different level of service.
And it's not just travel, right? We can apply this to so many things.
Yeah.
Like, think about huge global supply chains.
Yeah.
This AI could be negotiating prices and contracts with all these different suppliers.
That's right.
And then if something unexpected happens, it can reroute shipments.
Exactly. Keeping everything moving.
Or even change production schedules based on, like, how much demand there is.
Real-time adjustments.
So we're talking about reshaping how businesses operate.
Across the board. Every sector.
Okay, this is huge. So how do we even begin to wrap our heads around all the implications of this?
Well, it's complex,
So complex.
but we can break it down into 4 key areas.
Okay, let's do it.
First, there's creativity and intellectual property, or IP.
Okay, IP.
Like, how does this AI autonomy change what we think of as creative work? And who owns it?
Big question.
Then there's the legal and ethical stuff. Liability, consent, accountability.
Yeah.
Like when AI is calling the shots.
Right, making those big decisions.
Then there's the economic and competitive stuff.
Right.
Like, how does AI on both sides of the market, buyers and sellers, change things? Could lead to new kinds of collusion.
That's a scary thought.
And finally, how do we even govern these powerful AI systems?
Yeah, how do we make sure they're working for us, not against us?
Exactly. We need to balance innovation with fairness and transparency.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is, but it's important.
Okay, let's start with creativity and IP. I mean, even with normal generative AI, this is already tricky, right?
It is.
So how does agentic AI make it even more complicated?
Well, a big challenge is like balancing novelty and usefulness.
Okay.
Mukherjee and Chang, they talk about this a lot in their research.
So novelty being like how original something is.
Right. How new and different.
And usefulness is how, well, useful it is.
Yeah. How practical it is. Does it actually solve a problem?
Makes sense.
So agentic AI can come up with crazy new ideas.
Yeah.
Like that super personalized Vietnam itinerary,
Uh-huh.
But what if it's not realistic?
Oh, right. What if it's all these crazy activities that I can't afford or that are like logistically impossible?
Exactly.
But it has to be new and useful. It can't just be wild and crazy.
Exactly. And this tension, it's always been there with creative AI. But agentic AI, it just ramps it up.
Because the AI is making the calls, right?
Exactly.
It's not just brainstorming. It's actually doing the work.
Right. Executing the ideas.
So that brings up a huge question.
Yeah.
Who owns the creative output?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right. If it's the AI doing all the creative heavy lifting, where do humans fit in?
It's a tough one. And our legal systems.
Uh-huh.
They were really struggling with this idea of like non-human creators.
Yeah, because our whole system is based on the idea that a person is doing the creating.
Right.
Hmm.
And that has massive implications for ownership and for how we encourage innovation.
Okay, so walk me through this. With the old generative AI, you're pretty involved in shaping the final product.
Right.
So it's more of a collaboration when it comes to IP.
Exactly. You're working with the AI.
But with agentic AI.
This is different.
Okay.
The system is doing it all. Scanning data, finding the good stuff, putting it all together.
Yeah.
Like that research report or that travel plan.
Uh-huh.
And it does all this with very little human input.
So in essence...
The AI is the creator.
Okay, so imagine an AI that comes up with something totally new.
Yeah.
A brand new insight in a research paper. Or a crazy innovative structure for that itinerary.
Right.
Who owns that?
It's the big question, right?
The person who started the process? The company that made the AI?
Yeah.
Does the AI own it?
We're in uncharted territory here.
Totally.
And the laws are trying to catch up.
So what's happening now?
So, for example, in the U.S., the Copyright Office, they came out with a policy
And what's this?
back in 2023.
Okay.
And it basically said if an AI does most of the work and there's not much human input,
Uh-huh.
then you can't copyright it.
So if it's all AI, no copyright?
Yeah, that's the gist.
That makes things even more murky when you're talking about fully autonomous agentic AI.
Exactly.
And we've seen the same debates with patents, haven't we?
Oh, yeah. Remember Debu's?
Debius.
The AI they tried to credit as an inventor?
Oh, yeah. What was that all about?
So, Debi's. This AI came up with some inventions, right?
Oh,
Like a special food container
okay.
and a flashing beacon.
Right.
And they tried to file patents with the AI listed as the inventor.
So not a human, an AI.
Yeah, which, caused a huge stir, lots of legal challenges.
What happened?
So most countries, like the US, the UK, and the European Patent Office, they all said no.
They said no to AI inventors.
Yeah, they're like, inventors have to be people.
Human beings.
Yeah. Like in the US, the Federal Circuit Court, they ruled in Fowler v. Vidal back in 2022.
Uh-huh.
They basically said, current patent law requires a human inventor, period.
But weren't there some exceptions to that? Like,
Yeah.
didn't South Africa do something different?
Yeah, they did. They granted a patent with Dabius listed as the inventor.
So an AI was officially an inventor?
It was.
Wow.
But it was more of a procedural thing.
What do you mean?
Like, they didn't really dig into the whole question of whether an AI could actually be an inventor.
Okay.
And then there was a court in Australia that initially said an AI could be an inventor.
Oh, wow.
But then a higher court overturned it.
Still up in the air.
Very much so.
Yeah.
It's a mess. No one agrees internationally.
So our laws, they're all about humans being the creators.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't work when you've got AI doing so much of the creative work.
Totally.
It's like our laws haven't caught up with the technology.
They haven't. And legal scholars, they've been pointing this out for a while.
Even before agentic AI.
Yeah. Like Samuelson back in the 80s,
Mm-hmm.
he was questioning if copyright could even handle AI-generated stuff.
Whoa. Ahead of his time.
And then Jay-Z, more recently, he's been saying the same thing.
Okay.
And Breedy, he had this interesting idea.
How was that?
Back in 2012, he was saying maybe creativity itself has an algorithmic basis.
Interesting.
Like maybe AI creativity isn't so different from how our brains work.
Right. But agentic AI takes this to another level.
It does.
Why? Because it's not like we're tweaking the AI's output, right?
Exactly.
It's doing the whole creative process from start to finish.
Right. Like Deep Research is
Uh-huh.
doing the whole research summary.
And the AI travel assistant, it's making the whole itinerary.
Right.
These systems aren't just helpers,
Yeah.
they're the creative forces.
Exactly. And that throws a wrench into IP law,
Uh-huh.
which, usually needs a human to be intentionally involved in the creative process.
Like, it needs a human author at some point.
Yeah, Abbott made that point a few years back.
So it's getting harder to say, okay, this human was the creative spark.
Way harder.
Especially with AI training on data that other AIs made.
Exactly. And it gets even crazier.
How?
What if one AI hires another AI to do something creative?
What? Like AI outsourcing.
Exactly. Like, imagine a creative agentic AI gets hired by an interior design AI,
Whoa. Okay.
which is working for a human client.
So a chain of AIs.
Yeah.
And then where did that creative spark really come from?
Impossible to say. It's all blurred.
Totally.
And that has big practical consequences.
Yeah, like who gets the money for a creative work?
Right. Like before, a human photographer would get royalties if an AI used their images.
Makes sense.
But now it's the AI making and using the images.
Right.
So the money goes to the people who made the AI.
The AI developers, not the human artists.
This is a strange situation.
Totally. It's like, why bother training humans to be creative if AI can do it without needing royalties?
Right.
But then on the flip side, why invest in AI creativity if the AI can't own the IP?
It's a paradox.
It totally is. Our whole system is meant to encourage human creators.
Yeah, like it says in the Constitution, to promote the progress of science and useful arts.
Right. But what happens when AI is the creator?
That's the question.
And it can keep creating forever.
It's like Bridey and Samuelson have been saying.
Uh-huh.
This whole thing is making us rethink if our IP system even makes sense anymore.
So what can we do about this? What are some of the solutions people are talking about?
So Mukherjee and Chang, they say we need to rethink IP accountability. Big time.
Like figure out who did what.
Yeah, like how much did the human contribute versus the AI?
Okay.
And then we knew clearer standards for attribution.
Like who gets the credit?
Exactly. And maybe we need new royalty models.
Ones that recognize that sometimes it's a team effort.
Right. Humans and AI working together.
Because if we don't do something, AI is just going to be churning out all this content.
Yeah.
And legally, it belongs to no one.
And the big tech companies, they'll be the ones profiting.
Because they control the AI.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move on to our next big topic.
Yeah.
Liability, consent, and accountability. This one's a doozy.
It is.
Especially when AI has so much power to act on its own.
Right. So Osaro, he brought up this fundamental question
Okay.
over a decade ago,
Oh,
actually.
wow, ahead of the curve.
So when an AI makes a decision for you and it goes wrong,
Uh-oh.
who's responsible?
Good question.
Legally and morally.
So, like that AI travel agent,
Hmm.
it books me on a non-refundable flight,
Yeah.
or it picks an airline with a bad safety record.
Based on some like weird hidden criteria.
Right, that I have no idea about.
And then my flight gets canceled.
That's annoying.
Or worse, there's an accident.
Oh,
And
no.
then who's to blame?
That's a tough one. And then there's informed consent.
Yeah.
How can I actually understand and agree to what an AI is doing if I don't know how it works?
Right, because a lot of these AIs, they're like black boxes.
What do you mean?
Well, Pasquale talked about this. Even the developers, the people who made the AI,
Uh-huh.
sometimes they don't fully get why the AI does what it does.
Really?
It's just that complex.
So I'm supposed to trust this thing that even its creators don't fully understand.
It's tricky.
It is. So how can I possibly give my consent to something when I don't know the risks?
And when the AI is acting on its own.
Right. And it could be interacting with tons of other things.
Other AIs even.
Like in our travel example,
Yeah.
the AI might be deciding on travel insurance or picking a hotel,
Right.
but based on some algorithm that I just don't get.
Yeah. Middlestadt and his colleagues did some great research on this.
Uh-huh.
Like, if I don't understand how it works, how can I give informed consent?
So it feels like the developers, the companies behind the AI, they could just wash their hands of it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, hey, it's not our fault. The AI was doing its own thing. The user asked for it.
That's the scary part. And Matthias, he actually came up with a term for this.
Oh, yeah. What?
The responsibility gap.
Responsibility gap. Catchy.
It was back in 2004.
Okay.
And it describes exactly this.
Where no one wants to take the blame.
Yeah. When systems are so autonomous, even their creators can't predict what they'll do.
So how do you hold anyone accountable?
And then there are some scholars,
Okay.
like Santoni DeCio and Vandenhoven.
All right.
They're actually saying we shouldn't give AI legal personhood.
Like, treat it as a person in the eyes of the law. Why
Yeah.
not?
They think it could just let the people who use AI off the hook,
Interesting.
like a way to avoid responsibility.
So where does that leave me, the user?
Well, you're stuck in the middle.
The moral crumple zone, as Eilish put it.
Exactly.
That is such a perfect term. It's like you get blamed even though you had no control.
Exactly. Like that self-driving car example.
Yeah.
The car's in control.
Right.
But if there's an accident,
Uh-huh.
the passenger might get blamed.
Even though they weren't driving.
It's a real problem.
So no one is responsible.
It's like this accountability vacuum.
Right.
The AI is too autonomous to blame the user,
Okay.
but it's not doing a simple, predictable task. So it's not really the user's fault either.
Right.
And usually, there's no human overseeing the AI that you could blame.
So where do you point the finger?
Exactly. And then you have to remember how a lot of these AIs learn. It's not simple programming anymore.
No.
It's reinforcement learning,
Okay.
complex stuff.
So it's learning as it goes.
Right. So even the developers might not be able to fully explain everything it does.
So they can't be held responsible either.
It's tough.
It is. And we also talked about how innovation always has some risk, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So if this agentic AI is doing something complex in the real world,
Like planning my big trip.
right, things could go wrong.
Things will probably go wrong at some point.
And then this whole lack of responsibility, it's a huge problem.
It is.
So what can we do? Are there any solutions out there?
Well, people are working on something called accountable algorithms.
Accountable algorithms. What does that mean?
So the idea is to build accountability into the AI itself.
Okay.
So you can understand how it made a decision,
Uh-huh.
and you can challenge it if you need to.
That sounds promising.
But it's hard to put into practice,
Yeah.
especially with these really advanced agentic AIs,
Yeah.
because they're often proprietary,
Like the companies keep them secret?
Exactly.
And they use really complex machine learning, like reinforcement learning, which is hard to untangle.
Exactly. So a regular user might not know why the AI did something,
Right.
and they might not even be able to challenge it legally.
And the companies can just say, well, the AI did it, not us.
Right.
Okay, that's not very reassuring.
No, it's not.
Okay, let's move on to the economic stuff.
Okay.
We've talked about how agentic AI changes things for individuals, but what about the bigger picture?
Right, the whole marketplace.
Like, how does it affect competition?
So this is a big deal. Because we're talking about a fundamental change to economic systems
Wow.
and even how businesses compete.
Okay.
And it goes beyond those algorithmic pricing strategies that we've seen, where algorithms interact with people.
Uh-huh. I see what you mean.
Now we're in a situation where we've got autonomous agents on both sides of the market.
Buyers and sellers, both using AI.
That's right. And that leads to what's called two-sided algorithmic interaction.
Okay, two-sided.
And that opens up a whole new world of potential problems.
Like what?
Well, one of the big ones is tacit collusion.
Tacit collusion. What does that mean?
It's like a sneaky kind of collusion.
Sneaky how?
So imagine a bunch of airlines,
Okay.
and they're all using agentic AI.
To do what?
Everything.
Yeah.
Setting prices, scheduling flights, marketing, customer service, all that.
Okay, so the AI is running the show.
Pretty much. And if these AIs are all trained on similar data
Uh-huh.
and using similar algorithms,
Right.
they might end up making very similar decisions.
So they're all doing the same thing.
Yeah, like with pricing, for example.
Oh, so prices could end up being the same across all the airlines.
Exactly. And services could become really similar.
So even though they're supposed to be competing,
Right.
they're actually working together.
In a way, yeah. Without even talking to each other.
So it's like accidental collusion.
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah.
And we've seen hints of this with algorithms and human consumers.
Uh-huh.
But now with agentic AI on both sides, it's going to be everywhere.
It's like a fully algorithmic market.
Exactly.
Okay, so how exactly does this work? Can you give me an example?
So let's say we've got two online stores.
Okay.
They both use AI to set prices,
Okay.
and they're competing, right?
Uh-huh.
So at first they might try different pricing strategies,
Okay.
but over time, their AIs, they learn
From what?
from the market,
Okay.
from each other,
Uh-huh.
and they realize that if they keep undercutting each other on price,
Yeah.
everyone loses money.
Makes sense.
So without actually talking to each other,
Okay.
their AIs might start to keep prices higher.
Artificially higher.
Yeah. Basically, they collude.
Without even meaning to.
It's like their algorithms are driving them to this point.
Yeah.